Good evening. Expired soup, come and get it! If you don't, I won't be able to sell next week's expired soup. We've all got our gaming white whales, a dormant series sitting around that we're just waiting for a new entry in. A new Little Big Planet, a new Half-Life, a new Rayman. Holy shit, they're doing it! Oh, false alarm. A game gets announced in a series you like that isn't exactly what you want. Big whoop. There will always be a next entry. So, your game's been held hostage. What can you do about it? You're not gonna like this? Sodomy. This is a small little problem I see cropping up in the gaming world. A company stakes a franchise's future entry on a single entry and leaves the consumer to pick up their slack, with the most recent example no doubt being Rayman Legends Retold. The game's announcement in June 2026 left me with so many questions. Mainly, what the f***? Rayman Legends is a game with a beautiful art style, one that isn't harmed by its age. And you know it's impolite to ask a game its age. The game came out less than 15 years ago and plays flawlessly. I understand remaking a good entry to revitalize hope in a franchise, or to train a new dev team on what makes the series so special. Hell, I'm not opposed to it. Look how many times Star Fox has done it. Yeah, and look how many times it's worked. Launching this remake is one issue, but launching it with this horrendous redesign of Rayman is another. It completely misses the charm of pretty much every single iteration of the character. Isn't the point of a remake to bring the game up to code with the modern day? Show modern audiences why people in the past loved the franchise? Why would you remake it with a worse art style that makes the game look so damn drab? And the problem isn't that the whole game is realistic. It's because it fails to adapt even the atmosphere of the game that's being remade. You might be asking yourself, what? Did you just want the remake to look exactly like the original? Well, no. I didn't want to exist in the first place! You can't convince me that taking a game with a near-timeless art style and adapting it to the third dimension, adding new cutscenes, levels, and music wasn't a bad idea. For the amount of time and effort invested, just make a new fucking game! You created a ton of completely original assets for this. Just make a new game at this point! Can you spot the difference? Yeah, fucking everything! Hell, Rayman doesn't even get the grace of pulling this the first time. He's already done this before! That's right, you might have forgotten, but they actually pulled this same little stunt with Rayman Origins. I didn't like it there, but I let it slide since the game was phenomenal and truly was the series' comeback. But trying to pull that same shtick, especially with the remake, especially after he bunked with Super f***ing Mario, it's f***ing insane! How stupid do you think I am? I only buy games deserving of my time, like Dance Aerobics and Gex. I can't help but feel like this trend really got eyes due to the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy. When that game hit the block, everyone was begging for a traditional Crash Bandicoot game, especially after whatever the fuck they were doing beforehand. So remaking the three games people knew they already liked did wonders for the game's sales. This came at a time when gaming was on the rise, and mascots of the olden days were all being reminisced upon more widely, so releasing a new game around this time was kind of destined to do well. And the same goes for Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, the only game I've ever stolen a Walmart display poster for. I don't even like the game, I just like the possibility of arrest. Despite the quality and great reception of these games, I can't help but feel like this style of remake is less than ideal to revive a franchise. While yes, the remake might be good, it kind of eats up all the attention a new game also would have gotten. It's a safe shot to just remake the most popular game in a series, but a new game impressing is way better at harboring an active community. At the end of the day, discussion of a remake will only be in comparison to the original, never being able to truly make its mark because it's treading old ground. That's why years later when Crash 4 came out, despite the rave reviews and still impressive sales count, the studio got the chopping block because it didn't hit the same financial highs as the remake. At least when Spyro did the same thing, the sequel went through so much trouble it's practically a revival in of itself. Look at Bubsy 4D, a brand new entry in a dormant franchise. Imagine if it was just an HD remake of the original Bubsy, or God forbid Bubsy 3D. No one would give a shit outside of the freaks already invested in this series. By making a new game, it reached out to a whole new audience. An audience who wants to be 6 inches deep in the cat, but a new audience nonetheless. Another example, Metroid Dread. Rather than coming back with, say, the Metroid Prime Remaster, they came in swinging with a new title after the series' brief dormancy. Even better, after the game's insane sales, it got more eyes on the franchise, getting people hungry to go back to the older titles, and oh look, a remaster of the best game is also coming out soon? What are the odds? Seeing what they're doing to Rayman doesn't feel like they actually had a reason to retell this story outside of making the game closer to Ubisoft's other AAA titles. It feels like they didn't want to go through the trouble of designing a new game and instead wanted to save time by just reusing the most important part of the game, the actual game itself. But wait, they put in a level based on MC Hammer's Can't Touch This. How can I not buy with such a wacky concept? I still laugh when they put Rickrolls in movies. Sony tried this a couple times during the PS4 generation, with many of their older franchises like Parappa the Rapper, God of War, and Medieval getting the treatment, trying to clean up franchises collecting dust on their shelves. God of War was obviously a success. The smattering of sequels and spin-offs should be a sign of that. Now, you might think this is evidence against my argument, but come on, this game would have done well regardless. This didn't do well because God of War fans were rushing for pre-orders. It did well because it was a good game coming out at the right time. Either that or Racing Stripes were in at the time. They tried the same tactic with Parappa the Rapper remastered, and I'm not exactly sure what they expected out of this. Parappa is one of those series that is iconic, but also appeals to a pretty small crowd. And re-releasing a game less than an hour long with a borderline unplayable port that was essentially just a spit shine? Do you see why God of War is the one that got the sequels? No. Out of all of these, nobody got it worse than Medieval. They pulled the same hostage negotiation with Medieval 2019, a full remake of the original title, the second remake of it actually, with Medieval Resurrection releasing on the PSP. 2019 was a pretty sleek and well put together remake of that original game, and it sold fairly well for such a niche series, with the most recent sales number sitting around 500,000. Look, I know that's not God of War numbers, but like, that's a success, right? So where the f*** is the next Medieval game? The same place as A Day with SpongeBob. What, did they expect this game from over 30 years ago with the most generic title known to man to be selling in the millions? Buddy, you're lucky it cracked the 100K mark. We at Sony are expecting great numbers from a classic PlayStation title coming to PS5. Zammed. If anyone learned the lesson that this didn't work, it was Nintendo, back during the 3DS and Wii U era. They tried this tactic with games like Metroid Prime Federation Force, Star Fox Zero, and of course, Chibi-Robo Ziplash. I never played these games, I have no strong opinions on them. All of these were, frankly, not what people wanted out of these series. Look, they took the narrative exploration-based single-player first-person shooter and turned it into an online multiplayer competitive game on the 3DS. I took this bottle of water, making the 3D exploration puzzle game series into a shitty 2D platformer is a recipe for anti-success. I don't know why they thought this would sell well. I'll give Star Fox Zero this. At the very least, it wasn't a complete bastardization of what the fans wanted. It was just really, really bad. Ooh, really dodged a bullet there. All these games were allegedly the final chances for these franchises, and ignoring the obvious for two of these, clearly it didn't work. All of these games sold terribly, and why wouldn't they? They all sucked dick, dude. A game being bad isn't the reason that this does poorly, though. Hell, look at EA trying to do the same thing with Dead Space on multiple occasions. Though as much shit as I've talked on these other companies, no company is more guilty of doing this than Sega. The boy who cried wolf of hostage negotiations. Yakuza, Monkey Ball, Shinobi, Virtua Fighter, hell, even Sonic on a few different occasions. All of these have been on the supposed chopping block over the years, and while the series in question were undoubtedly on the downturn, there's no way in hell any of these games are getting axed. In what universe is Sega going to cut off Sonic the fucking Hedgehog? One where I never got diagnosed. And if these were getting completely dumped, why the hell would you remake one of the most middling games in the series to bring it back? Sega got lucky during the Switch era, with most of their series hitting right at a time when casual audiences were returning to gaming, and when discussion of their series were high. Meaning that most of, if not all of these stunts did pay off. However, it was in spite of this method, not because of it. Hell, I imagine we're gonna see this statement pop up again now that Sega's bringing back a bunch of old legacy series. Look, I'm sure these companies aren't lying when they tell people that this game might be the end of the road, but I can never truly see it that way. It will always read to me as an admission of failure, an outward cry that we f***ed up so bad that the consumer has to pick up the slack for us, when that's not my job. Yeah, my job is to scream about Hello Neighbor and be the ambassador for virginity. Games are so insanely expensive these days. Hell, most people can't afford to pick up a release every time Activision sneezes. When half these new games are just old games with a bit of polish, why wouldn't they just go back to the originals that are usually around for much, much cheaper? A company CEO saying how much rides on one game is just a shameless call to action, when I, as the couch roller, might just want to take my time getting to a game. There's also the elephant in the room. Even the most bargain bin single-A game release has the net worth of a small country put into it, and if it underperforms, that's it. There's no money to make the next game. Plus, if a game sells poorly, why the fuck would they want to make another sequel? Why would they make another game that's just gonna sell worse? Every game's future relies on it selling well, unless it's something huge like fucking Mario. A company vocally saying a series hinges on sale doesn't signal to me, oh no, I better rush out post-haste for the company! All I hear is that the studio knows that this isn't the game that people want. Then why the fuck did you make it? So let me get this straight. You greenlit the game while knowing people wouldn't like it and people also wouldn't buy it. What could this be other than some kind of corporatized findom? Here's the thing. If a game doesn't speak to you, don't buy it. Now you tell me. Companies will beg you to buy some garbage you don't care about if it means they can add another 0 to their sales report. If they were going to make a sequel, they could have just done that in the fucking first place. Corporations are just going to do what makes them the most money and what keeps them in the best light, so they'll blame poor sales on the consumer rather than themselves. It's not the company's fault that the game sold poorly, it's on the fans! If you love this series so much, why didn't you buy the game? Maybe you're just not a real fan. Do you think I own all these as a joke? Seriously, do you know how many times I've seen some goober online defending these corporate entities with their life for the opportunity to lick Ubisoft's feet? Respectfully, you're getting played by the corporations. Just think about all the series that climbed out of limbo and succeeded on their own merits. Just because someone couldn't or didn't want to buy a single entry, it doesn't make them any less of a fan. Not that a hypothetical fan status really matters all that much. Gamers are the most parasocial community I've ever seen, and some of you fuckers have sent me your feet, so that's saying something. Gamers have this strange devotion to their favorite companies and series like their own lives depend on it, buying games they don't really like just in case someday they might put out a solid entry. It's pure consumerism, buying shit just because you recognize it. Something that I'm clearly above. Is that oxygen? Your money's your money. Do what you want with it, but if an entry seems disappointing, you're allowed to just not buy it. As for the companies pulling this shit, stop it! Whew, no need to brag, but I just saved the game industry. You guys can thank me later, don't worry. Take a look at Atari right now, a company with about as much cultural relevance as dirt. In recent years, they've really pulled themselves around, simply because they've been making cheaper games and throwing more shit at the wall. Sure, not every game is a hit, but due to the series' low cost to make or license, a failure of one game doesn't mean the death of the franchise. None of these series are being held hostage by inflated dev costs. You will see the return of the Atari Video Cube. These companies would have to stop hedging their entire future on games if they didn't keep making them with budgets that could never possibly be made back. Maybe what these series need isn't a new entry, but just someone to do the budget. Development should cost $80, but the president wants a new yacht. Better take out a loan. Video games aren't made out of love for the consumer. They're made to make money, which makes it so baffling that all these companies seem allergic to turning a profit. The good news is, nothing stays dead forever. It might take a minute, hell, it might take a lifetime, but companies will defile any corpse for a quick buck. They're calling Spyro a realm beyond the first case of legal necrophilia. Whether it be a passionate group of people being allowed to take a stab at a dead IP, or simply a company nostalgia pandering, most series worth a damn will make their way back to store shelves. And if the series does stay dead, maybe it's good the book was closed before someone got the chance to ruin it. There is one slight problem with that line of thinking, though. If you do that, nobody's gonna buy my soup! If I can't sell this, I'm gonna be homeless! I guess it could be worse. I could be doing whatever the Crash Bandicoot's up to now.